Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this very important webinar titled BBIN Connectivity Way Forward. I'm Mohit Musaddi. I am a researcher with the ISCS, and we have an excellent panel to discuss the issues today. Firstly, I would like to introduce the chair, and I will request him to then take it forward from there. Our chair for today is Professor Sachin Chaturvedi ji. Dr. Chaturvedi is the Director General at the Research and Information System for Developing Countries. It's a New Delhi-based autonomous think tank. He is also a Global Justice Fellow at the Macmillan Center for International Affairs at the Yale University. He works on issues related to development cooperation policies and South-South cooperation. He has also worked with trade and innovation linkages with special focus on the WTO. Dr. Chaturvedi has served as a visiting professor at the JNU and has also worked as a consultant to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization with the World Bank, UNSCAP, UNSCO, OECD, the Commonwealth Secretariat, among others. He has been a developing country fellow at the University of Amsterdam, a visiting fellow at the Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and also a visiting scholar at the German Development Institute. He is on the editorial advisory board of IDS Bulletin and is the editor of the Asian Biotechnology Development Review. Apart from that, Dr. Chaturvedi has authored and edited 9 books, apart from publishing several other research articles in various prestigious journals. Dr. Chaturvedi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mohit, for your generous introduction. Thanks a lot, Arindamji, for getting all of us together. Your dynamic leadership is playing an extremely important role in getting sub-regional cooperation moving forward. So my greetings and congratulations to you. Being based in Kolkata, you and Kankana and all your team have been doing a very important role in connecting India with our neighbors and analyzing that in a very substantive manner, how partnerships, how our linkages, and how our shared legacy can be further enriched for a better world. And that, I think, is not confined to trade. Posh knows it. Some of us who are into trade, we think that we can really understand the regional partnership, but that's not correct, Posh. I think we need to do work more closely with those who understand culture, who understand our economic priorities. And friends and colleagues, as you would be following economics literature, you must be exploring that there is a new stream of cultural participation. Cultural connects is coming in, and they are contributing immensely in terms of how economics and culture, they link together. Just before I stepped in this meeting, I was holding the chair for T20 meeting of Indonesia, which we started today at 2 o'clock. And I was just afraid that I would be late for this meeting, but fortunately you started a few minutes late, so I was well in time. And we were discussing there, and people were making it out, an OECD presentation was there, that when we talk about technology, we talk about technology's role in infrastructure development and what role technology can really prevail. But the point our colleagues from OECD made were two. They said technology can create rapid infrastructure development, but it cannot bring in culture. It cannot bring in local connect. So infrastructure development, infrastructure buildings, they require local specificities to be factored in. And this is coming in from people who really taught us how to forget and just imbibe the building designs which are completely alien to us, completely alien to people, because you might have seen villagers struggling to cross the road when roads are crossing from their village and fast moving vehicles are running on those roads, and they have no way to go on the other side of their own farm and their own village. So now more and more underpasses are being given and more provisions are being made. So friends and colleagues, time has come when we have to be far more sensitive in terms of how we bring in the convergence in policy recommendations, not exclusively based on trade and economy alone. We also bring in factors which respect local sensitivity, local cultural dimensions, and ethos for development, and making it more inclusive and substantive. So with that, initial remark, I once again very warmly welcome each one of you. We have a great panel today. They know all is what my presumption is. They have been practitioners. They have been contributors in terms of how BBIN should be better shaped. What are the areas we can really work in? But before I pass on to our panel, I just want to make three quick points on how we can really go forward. First and foremost, as the title of the seminar shows, BBIN connectivity, the way forward. I think the way forward should include at least 3 points, if not more, and I'm sure our panelists would contribute and would react. The first and foremost is that BBIN has to be a subset in terms of the larger settings that we need. So BBIN as a part of the larger BIMSTEC narrative, and BIMSTEC being the larger connect with our South Asia and Southeast Asia connect, and then the larger Indo-Pacific connect. So the infrastructure projects which are on as part of IORA, projects which are on within BIMSTEC, and projects that are connecting the West Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, and further up. So a large effort of BBIN is not within the sub-region, but being a facilitator for Asia-wide integration that we are looking at. So that is a multimodal transit transport system that brings in the convergence of the trilateral highway, the ACTIS policy, and also the larger connect that we see across regions and across groupings, be that SAARC or BIMSTEC, ASEAN or Mekong Ganga or BBIN, and a couple of others. So that way, there is one. The second point that I want to suggest is to go beyond the connectivity in physical sense alone. Connectivity is much wider concept. It brings in, as I said in the beginning, not only the physical connectivity, but also multimodal connectivity, also digital connectivity, and trade and investment, of course, are there. Technology and dimensions that are important in terms of how we realize the sustenance of it. So being conscientious of the fact that environmental conservation, our commitment for SDG Agenda 2030, and third and the last point that I want to make is about cost-effective construction work. So access to finance. How do we dovetail the efforts that are needed by our governments for cost-effective access to resources, cost-effective access to finance? And from that perspective, role of the regional financial institutions, be that ADB or many others, the MDBs as they are called, the multilateral development funds as they are called, their role is equally important. So with these words, I once again keenly look forward to the role that our panel would be playing and would be leading us. Now, I have the list of speakers before me, and I would call them in that order. I have first Bangladesh listed here, Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, BIISS, Dhaka, and I have Dr. Mahfouz Kabir to be invited. So I have great pleasure in inviting Dr. Kabir. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chaturvedi, and I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to say a few words on this particular issue, very important. And in fact, I would be focusing on the 3 points that you already mentioned, in fact, but beyond that, I would also include some of the other issues in the policy making avenue in Bangladesh. So first of all, the greater regional connectivity and beyond the region. So I think that, in fact, BIMSTEC is again, in fact, coming. So in fact, in South Asia, the SAARC is in there. So for decades, but I think now since Bangladesh is in fact the current chair of in fact the IORA. So and also in fact the other things, the other avenues like in fact East Asian and Southeast Asian markets are also in fact getting vibrated, and also we need connectivity despite the in fact tension in Ukraine. But I think there are definitely there will be problems, but we have to in fact explore the avenues of opportunities. So with that, I think in fact the Indo-Pacific, so it's in fact being discussed in the policy making arena of Bangladesh. So but Bangladesh is not going to join in the security forums or arrangement, but Bangladesh is very much interested in the in fact developmental, infrastructural, energy cooperation and other. If whatever the economic and development avenues are there, Bangladesh is very much interested, and I think the South Asian, in fact, and also BBIN countries are also, in fact, very much interested in the developmental perspectives of Indo-Pacific. So these are the realities. So we have to keep in mind, and BBIN, in fact, if it is motor vehicle agreement, if it is the soft, in fact, cooperation, connectivity, people-to-people contact, and also the issue of carbon footprint. So we are, in fact, heading towards the SDGs, and I think you already know Bangladesh has a in fact perspective plan. So to become a developed country by 2041. So it's an overarching national objective, and Bangladesh is heading towards that. So with the in fact objectives, with the in fact clear in fact developmental plans, which includes the mega projects, that includes the in fact connectivity projects, and these are also in fact included in the BBIN in fact connectivity projects. So this is basically number one point, and number two is the in fact going in fact so soft areas of connectivity, and you already mentioned about the multimodal connectivity. So the research, in fact, the studies are going on in Bangladesh, and there are basically three major documents of Bangladesh. One is Bangladesh Delta Plan, which includes the issues of in fact environment, water, climate change. So these are integrated with the overall developmental in fact discourses in Bangladesh. So in that document it's clearly mentioned that Bangladesh should use the waterways. So and regional waterways should be explored, and definitely it would be integrated, and so there is a, in fact strong in fact policy perspective on from Bangladesh. And another document is the 8th five-year plan. So in that plan also, and the regional connectivity and connectivity within the BBIN is mentioned, and we have another plan, which is perspective plan 2021-2041. So in all the documents, inland waterways and multimodal connectivity have been clearly mentioned as a tool for regional connectivity and connectivity beyond the region. So there is a in fact policy support in favor of all this, and also the issues of lesser carbon footprint and achieving the SDGs. So these are also mentioned, and connectivity should also be integrated with the in fact low carbon emission and less in fact environmental negative consequences. So these are mentioned in the policy documents. So I think the issue of environment and climate change are also covered in the policymaking area in Bangladesh. And the third issue, and which I think is a more important, is the cost-effective sources of in fact funding. So I think the World Bank may be one of the most important sources, and it has been in fact studying on the prospect of BBIN motor vehicle agreement, and especially the multimodal connectivity. So it's well aware of, and it has a concentration on this. So that can be a source, because if you see the other kind of in fact financiers like ADB, and also if we consider the other in fact banks like the Asian Infrastructure and Bank, so and in fact BRICS. So that can be sources, but I think the prime sources can be World Bank and ADB. So since World Bank is aware of, and ADB is also interested, but the thing is that we have to in fact have a kind of mechanism that is politically supported. So if the regional policymakers are interested and agreed on the multimodal connectivity and in fact motor vehicle agreement of BBIN. So I think in that case, I mean, it's easy to get the financing. So in that case, I mean, what are the overlapping areas? So that needs to be in fact identified. So, and the things that in fact, if the paperless trade is in fact implemented, then 40% cost will be in fact reduced. So and there are evidences, in fact, anecdotal evidences that there is a lot of tax in fact benefits of paperless trade, and if they integrated, in fact, if there is a single electronic gateway, so which is being supported by the World Bank, so in Bangladesh and Nepal, so that can in fact lessen the in fact the clearance time. So that is in there as an evidence, and cargo handling, storage, in fact, tariff calculation. So these are there are a lot of complications in this in all the processes of in fact cross-border trade. So in the border point, so these are the problematic issues, and the problem is in fact continuing. So that is a big problem. We understand that this should be addressed, but still these are in fact happening. It's continuing. So it's a problem. And in fact, if we clearly, in fact, Bangladesh and India, these are the most, I mean, the important in terms of the size of the economy in these four countries groups. So, and if we compare, even though there are a lot of developments in the border points in the dry ports, so but still, I mean, there are problems in terms of capacity. For example, Benapole can handle, in fact, 370 trucks, and while Petrapole can handle 750 trucks per day. So there is a huge, in fact, uneven facilities in the port, even though this port is the most important port in Bangladesh, India, in fact, land border trade. So, and if we consider the regional corridors, so the roads, in fact, carry 70%, but there are potentials in terms of railway and inland waterways, and also there is a huge potential in coastal, in fact, shipping. So even though these have the potentials, but it's not, in fact, it's not getting that much of momentum. So we have to have the multimodal, in fact, connectivity. So and we understand that. So if we have a concrete kind of proposal, which is backed up by the highest political, in fact, authorities by all the countries, then the financiers like World Bank and ADB, they will be definitely interested to finance, and beyond that, I think the finance will be very much costly. And in fact, so we understand that there is a need, and there must be this kind of, in fact, arrangement, and the concrete projects must be in there. But the most important problem is that we don't have any clear, in fact, timeline to implement the projects. So that, I think, that is the biggest barrier, I would say. So if the governments are interested, so the thinkers, regional thinkers and development partners, so they are all interested, I would say. But if we have a timeline of implementing the projects, or at least, I mean, if we agree on this, and if we have, in fact, if we don't even have the concrete timeline, but if we have some of the milestones and, in fact, range of times, then I think, I mean, there will be a kind of commitment from the and also the pressure on the political side, the highest political parts of each of the countries, and then, I mean, the development partners and then the financiers, they will be interested. So I think there should be a coordination of the activities regarding the projects, and if we can set the agenda by time, then I think there would be something tangible. So that's from my side. I'd be coming again if there are some other points.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Mahfouz Kabir. Brilliant. All the points that you have made are very relevant, and I'm sure we would come back to them. I would urge all my panelists to give 8 to 10 minutes to themselves, so that we have some time at the end for coming back for discussion. So thanks, Dr. Kabir. Let me now turn to Shri Purushottam Ojaji, former Commerce Secretary government of Nepal. As some of us know, he has been one of the prominent commentators on trade facilitation and has contributed immensely in terms of how developing countries, LDCs, should go forward. So, Purushottamji, you have the floor. No?
Thank you, Sachinji, for your kind introduction. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible now.
Uh, First of all, I would like to thank ISCS India for organizing this event, and particularly Professor Sachin for this opportunity. I'll try to keep my presentation within 10 minutes. Uh, what I see there that the BBIN, when we talk about BBIN connectivity, we have to go back to late 1990s when the sub-regional cooperation was started in this part of South Asia in the name of SASEC. And it was at a time when Nepal was developing three ICDs, Inland Clearance Depot in Birganj, Biratnagar and Bhairava. So, of course, it has given impetus for having the regional, sub-regional connectivity. And following that, in the first decade of the current century, um, there was a good omen for the South Asian countries in the direction of regional economic cooperation. Actually, we signed the SAFTA agreement and BIMSTEC FTA in 2004. For Nepal, particularly, 2004 was important in case that uh, Nepal became the member of WTO the same year as well. So what I see that the third milestone, what I see that in the area of connectivity, it is the study done through ADB. One was the SARC regional multimodal transport study done in 2006, and the BIMSTEC trade infrastructure and logistics study done in 2007. Of course, these two studies have laid ground for physical connectivity and even multimodal connectivity through different mode of transportation, roadways, railways, inland water transport, air transport, all these things. These are included in those studies. And of course, on the series, the BBI and MBA is there 2015, and there was a lot of hope and jubilation among the partnering countries for signing the agreement, about signing the agreement in 2015 in Thimphu. The positive side was that it enabled, you see, the sub-regional connectivity and, of course, the seamless transportation of goods and passenger across the sub-region. It was quite, everybody was jubilant on that, but the pessimistic side is that even after a lapse of 6.5 years, now we are in 2022, the protocols for operationalizing the agreement has not yet been signed. So it is getting much delayed. In this context, what I see that it is very important in order to build up the cooperation mechanisms and the integration mechanisms, as you have rightly pointed out. It is not only the transport connectivity, it is the multimodal connectivity, digital connectivity, and of course, cultural and social linkages. It has to go together. And when we are working on a broader framework of BIMSTEC or SAFTA, I think if you could expand the current regimes and the current scope of work of BBIN. First of all, we have to go for operationalizing this agreement for passenger, for cross-border movement of the passengers and traffic, and beyond that, we have to go for enhancing the areas of cooperation. That is very important, and that will help to build block for greater integration at the regional level, say for BIMSTEC or SAFTA, whatever SARC or BIMSTEC level. So, in that context, as you have as you have pointed out, I would like to just point out 5 points in relation to this integration, economic and social integration, without without going much detail or elaboration on that. What I see that the first, when you talk about the way forward, the prospect for the BBIN motor vehicle agreement or the connectivity, what we see that it has given a leeway. It has given the opportunity. It has opened up the opportunities for development of transport infrastructures within the BBIN countries. Of course, we have now several infrastructure projects are also under implementation, and some are planned, and particularly for the expansion of the road facilities, expansion of the railway facilities. If you say that the Nepal, between Nepal and India, when in future we are going to have five southern border cities connected with the railway system in future. Out of these, two are already connected, and three or four are going to be connected. So I think this type of things, and the development of the bridges, extension of the widening of the highways, and these are going on either under the assistance of Asian Development Bank, World Bank, or under the bilateral cooperation as well. So I think the new development that we have seen after 2015 is the um, between Nepal and India. They have agreed for utilization of the inland water transport of India for movement of transit traffic. It has been principally agreed, but the protocol is still to be prepared. So I think these are some of the area that we have to. One is the area for development, potentialities for development of transport infrastructure. It is there. Second, it is related with the transit transport movement. Particularly, it is important for the landlocked countries like Nepal and Bhutan. The BBIN connectivity is supposed not only to connect the four partnering countries, but the landlocked countries could be connected with the seaport in India and Bangladesh. That will give leeway for them to connect to the international market. So I think that is very much important in the sense that there is need of uh, doing improvement in the operational part of this transit movement. One is the documentation and the procedures, simplification of the documentation transit procedures. That is very much important. And second is the development of the infrastructure, modernization of the infrastructure in the port or in the border infrastructure, or use and adoption of the modern fleet of vehicles, which has of course high power to weight ratio. The if you see the logistics and the transportation cost in South Asia, it is much higher than compared to other regions. So I think it is one of the area that we have to build on. We have to build up based on the BBIN connectivity. Third, what I see that it is about the inter-industry linkage, inter and intra-industry linkage. That is very much important. Vertical and horizontal integration of the industries in the region. India and Bangladesh, they are now becoming the hub of manufacturing industries in not only in Asia but in the world as well. So in that context, if the industries in Bhutan and Nepal could be linked in the production process, or the what you call the fragmentation of productions, or the decentralization production in that process. I think all the countries could benefit out of that from the manufacturing, the spillover benefit of the manufacturing, the emergence of manufacturing hub in India and Bangladesh. Say, for example, we have some specific industries could benefit out of that. Say, for example, garment could benefit, motor parts could benefit, and electronic goods, agro processing. These are some of the areas that can facilitate the industry to industry linkages, and that is another third point that I want to make. Fourth, it is about the development of the sub-regional electrical grids. We are talking about having the cross-border electricity grid that allows or that facilitates the cross-border trade of electricity. And whenever the electricity in one region is the deficit, then it can be supplied from other region or from other countries. That sort of things, that is very much important. And another part is that Nepal and Bhutan, they have of course I don't claim that they have sufficient capacity to generate electricity required for the sub region, but at least to some extent they can displace the energy produced from the coal and the fossil fuel. So I think is a source of clean energy. Nepal can produce large amount of electricity, and based on that, it would be uh, it would be appropriate to establish of energy intensive industry in Nepal, like the fertilizer industry, foundries industry, something like that. So I think it is also a part of the industry to industry linkages. Some of the industry that require higher intensive of power, they can be established in the electricity generating zone. So I think this is one of the area that we can look at. And finally, the fifth point I would like to make, it is about you talked, Dr. Sachin, you talk about cultural and social linkages. I think tourism is one of the imminent area that we can start cooperating each other, because we have a lot of tourist product right from highest mountain of the earth, highest peak of the earth, as to the blue ocean. Diversity of geography is there, and there are diversity of social and cultural practices. So tour packages could be developed and it could be marketed somewhere else. And at the same time, we have such a large volume of population in this region. Uh, Sub-region, if you include the whole population of India, it is and Bangladesh and of course Nepal, it goes beyond 100, 1.6, more than 1.6 billion people. So I think it itself is a big market, and we can there are opportunities of promoting. You see, intra-regional tourism that is already there, and even we can have tourism package developed and promoted and sold to outside world, so that we can benefit. And in the meantime, it will also help to generate people to people connectivity, connect people socially, culturally. All these things are available there. So I think what I see that in order to make it happen, of course, now we have to consider whether we start BBIN region, sub-region for free trade agreement, because the BIMSTEC and the SAFTA, they are they now they have become laggard, and there is no much progress done in this free trade area. So I think can we consider about having a free trade area? Say, for example, you can start from the early harvest program. So that sort of thing, I think the BBIN countries should work together in order to happen that. And secondly, what I see that we have to go on revising and modernizing the transit protocols that we have signed with, particularly Nepal signed with India and Bangladesh, because lot of changes are taking place in the international arena. Say, for example, we have the provisions of international convention. Now the technology has been there for easy access to information, processing of the information, all these things with the internet facilities. And there are several international conventions like revised Kyoto Convention. We have the TIR Convention. We have WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, Vienna Declaration. So there are so many instruments available, international instrument available for facilitation of transit transportation. These international instrument, the provisions of the international instrument need to be incorporated, duly incorporated in the protocol of the transit protocol. So I think these are some of the area that we have to look at in order to have better connectivity, and of course get multimodal connectivity as well as social and cultural connectivity. I stop there. If there are any question, I would be more than happy to answer. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks a lot, Ojaji, for very substantive intervention and well within the time. So thanks a lot for the helping us manage time better. I have now great pleasure in inviting my very dear friend, Dr. Poshraj Pandey, Chairman of SATE, and has been very actively contributing in various discussions, seminars related to Nepal, but also much larger at the global level and South Asia. So, Posh, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachin, for your kind words. First, let me thank Dr. Arindam Mukherjee and Institute of Social and Cultural Studies, Calcutta, for availing me this opportunity. Well, Sachin, first, I fully agree with you that BBIN should not be taken as a sub-region in isolation. Rather, it should be taken as a subset of a larger regional groups, which can, I think, something can ignite regional cooperation in broader context. Whether you talk about BIMSTEC or SARC, and also you should take it as an instrument to link various regional groups also. So on your first point, I fully agree with you. And on second point, you raised connectivity. Yes, I fully agree. Connectivity should not be limited to trade and transport connectivity. Rather, it should be taken in a broad and multidimensional sense. It should be taken both as an instrument and also as a mechanism to link people, communities, economies, and countries. As an instrument, connectivity comprises of physical and software connectivity. You rightly pointed out. And here, physical connectivity relates to road, rail, air, and maritime transport, which Mr. Oza has highlighted. And it also relates to digital infrastructure as well as power and energy connectivity. Maybe a transmission line or distribution network. And the software aspect of connectivity, it includes should include government policies, institutions, procedures, capacity, and also the government system. And as a mechanism, connectivity, it refers to trade, investment, migration, and also technology transfer. So, for me, it's not trade and transport connectivity. For me, connectivity is very broader term, and it's very, it's multidimensional. And all this instrument and mechanism of connectivity is very crucial, for regional cooperations between BBIN countries and also for economic development of these countries. But here, I would just like to focus on basically, if time allows, maybe two, otherwise just own aspects of connectivity. That's digital connectivity and also energy connectivity. Well, let me touch upon digital connectivity. This digital connectivity, if you look from a trade perspective, it reduces cost, particularly trade cost, and also document processing time. But if you look at broader context, then this digital connectivity, it provides instant people-to-people contact within the region. So this digital connectivity has multifaceted advantage. In connecting people, in connecting enterprises, and also in connecting countries. Again, coming to trade issues. With digital connectivity, we can introduce paperless trade by establishing, say, single window, and also, digitalizations and automations of customs and other procedures, at the border point. And all these aspects not only reduce cost, but also contributes to much more broader area. That's the transparency in custom clearance system. That I think that is the major contribution in our context, particularly in our governance context. And again, here this digital connectivity, it also enables trading partners to harmonize their data and also facilitate to exchange data. And that it helps to have some sort of evidence-based decision-making process. But for this digital connectivity, that robust technical infrastructure and skilled human resources, as well as end-to-end digital process. These are the must. But if you look at BBIN countries, there exist large gaps in digital competency in terms of digital infrastructure, in terms of internet penetration, or in terms of number of broadband subscriptions among BBIN countries. So to address these discrepancies, these gaps within BBIN countries, particularly with regard to digital connectivity, I think we need some sort of mechanism of cooperations in this digital connectivity sector. So what could be the areas for these regional cooperations? Two or together in BBI among BBIN countries. The first is, I think, that is basically to build digital skill among academicians, institutions, to upgrade the skill of their labor force, and particularly in order to facilitate them to participate in digital digital era, right? So, and the second area of cooperation could be sharing of experience, knowledge, and skill among BBIN countries, particularly in areas of e-commerce, e-governance, and also the use of technology, digital technology in agriculture or in manufacturing process. That could be another area of cooperation. And third could be particularly again, it's if we relate it to trade, then third area of cooperations could be trade related real time informations and data sharing. Oh well, the trade related data sharing that helps efficient clearance of customs, and it also this procedural aspects, also documentation, procedural aspects, that would be another area of cooperation. And the much more important area of cooperations could be digital cooperation in digital infrastructure. That also includes that developing ICT infrastructure. When I say ICT infrastructure, that's basically access to and also connection and affordability to those technology. You can share on those areas. And others, again, just the experience of Bank of Bangladesh, bitter experience. You can again, cooperate in cyber security. And another area of cooperations could be promotion of cross-border e-commerce and also cross-border e-commerce and logistics services and regional digital payment. Well, this could be the areas of cooperation in digital connectivity. And India being old class, having I would say old class digital capabilities, India can take a lead in cooperation or in promoting digital connectivity. I think I have exhausted my time, so I don't have time to talk on issues of energy connectivity. If time permits, maybe I can discuss those issues later. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Pandey, for very insightful and very substantive intervention. You have set the ball rolling in terms of how we can dovetail economic objectives and the social desirabilities with less carbon footprint. Your emphasis on digital connectivity, skilled human resources, trade-related real-time data sharing are some of the brilliant points I'm sure Arindamji would like to take note of. and this would help us in terms of going forward. Let me now bring in Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj from Center for South Asian Studies in the School of International Studies at JNU. He has been very actively working in terms of how we look at the issues which are there related to identity politics, and has been focusing on Bangladesh. His work on energy and energy connectivity in South Asia has been remarkable and has been very widely read. So congratulations for the great work that you are doing, Professor Bharadwaj. Let me now invite you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Chaturvedi, for the kind introduction. I'm still a young scholar learning from you all, and it is also very difficult to be a last speaker. That a lot of things had already been discussed. But let me first thank to my friend Arindam Mukherjee, who had given me this opportunity to speak on such a esteemed panel. My co-panelists and dear participants. Basically, I am trying to focus more on connectivity issues that is also in BBIN countries. And there, let me start my presentation with that we are part of common ecological organic system. We have common rivers, we have common mountains, we have common culture, history. And while you are looking basically the India and India's approach towards Bangladesh, or having the cooperation between India and Bangladesh, so you do find that Bangladesh is the largest developmental partner of India. Bangladesh is fastest growing economy, and Bangladesh is also a linchpin between India's northeast and the mainland. And of course, for the being the landlocked country, Bhutan and Nepal, Bangladesh provides access to sea routes through Mongla and Chittagong port. Of course, Kolkata port is also very important. But we need to understand what are the core factors, what are the core structural and functional factors that determines the relations between cooperation between the two countries and between among these countries. That there are basically that you can see cultural identity that connects the neighbors, but there are also the religious aspect that is distancing the neighbors over the years. But the second aspect is that there are small states or small state fear psychosis or syndrome, and of course, India being a regional power in the region and makes the region Indo-centric and creates asymmetries among the states. These are the structural factors or functional factors determines the cooperation and scope of cooperation between the two countries. But let me be clear here that India has clear three policy objectives with the neighboring countries, including all the neighboring countries. Of course, the security is one of the prime concerns of India or policy objectives of India, that is internal security and external security. Of course, India is also looking forward to have political stability in these countries. And third, that we are in fact exploring in this webinar is the economic development. And through the economic developments, we are looking forward to have connectivity between the two countries. If you are exploring India's policies, particularly in the post-Cold War era, that India had started with the Look East policy. And in the Look East policy, Bangladesh has become very important, very significant country. And from Look East to the second, suppose that can act East, basically, that while Modi came into power, he talks about that we should act towards the East. And the third aspects that today we are thinking about the connecting East. And the connecting East is very important aspects of physical connectivity, commercial connectivity, cultural connectivity, trade, water, energy. These are the issues that we are discussing today. My point is that we had been talking about the unilateralism or bilateralism and multilateralism, and through multilateral forums as well. We have created SAARC in 1985, but how much we have progressed. We have gone also talking about the sub-regional cooperation, and now we are moving towards the interregional cooperations through BIMSTEC that the two countries are there. But my point is very simple in my presentations. When you agree in principle and when you execute on ground, then the policies work. So what are the policies? What are the issues in principally we have agreed, and how we are executing those policies? Let me start with the first point, that basically the first policy and landmark agreement was signed between India and Bangladesh, a comprehensive framework of cooperation for developmental agreement in 2010. And that was the landmark agreement of what we are thinking today. We are talking about the BBIN cooperation. And in this landmark agreement, that basically the bilateral initiative of cooperation in regional framework, what Professor Sachin Chaturvedi is talking, that the BBIN in the regional broader perspective. So the first principle of this agreement of 2010 was that bilateral initiative or cooperation in regional framework. And there we have identified that resolving all the bilateral issues through mutual understanding and cooperation. We have also mutually recognized each other's critical concerns, that the concerns of each other's, while you not identify the concerns, you can't resolve them. And there then further, by this agreement, we have also identified the areas of cooperation. What we are talking about, the cooperation in the water resource, power, transport, connectivity, tourism, education, and how to execute. What are the SOPs to implement these policies that has been identified in 2010, I would say. But what are the policy shift that India had taken to connect at least BBIN country, and that through BBIN country, how India is looking beyond this region to connect with the Southeast Asian countries through tri-nation road connectivity projects and through inter-regional organizations like BIMSTEC and all that. So there are basically 5 policy initiatives that I have identified while looking forward to connecting with these BBIN countries. One is that India had been working on the principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity. This reciprocity has been shifted and transformed with non-reciprocity. That is well known fact from the Gujarat. We had resolved number of critical issues between India and Bangladesh, India and Nepal, particularly river water issues, that Mahakali River Treaty and the Ganges Water Treaty. The second very important aspect, the shift in India's policy towards these countries, was that we used to deal with bilaterally. All these countries, that any issue, we will take it on bilaterally, either water issue, connectivity issue, and all that. Even the transit issue, the transit issue had been the lifeblood for Bangladesh. That they thought they were having a mindset, if we will give transit to India, to northeastern states, what do we have to negotiate with India? But after 2010, and I would say that this bilateral approach has been transformed and converted in multilateral approach, that let's have a multilateral approach to deal all the issues, not only just connectivity, but like water issues. Like if there are bilateral contention between India and Bangladesh, we will take a basin-wise approach to resolve the water issue, where if Ganges water problem is there, we will also include Nepal as part of that. And this was very much reflected in 2010's Joint River Water Commissions, that they have discussed that we will take a basin-wise approach to resolve the water issues in between the two countries. So multilateralism on number of occasions, number of issues had been identified by India to take all these eastern neighbors into developmental board or for the development. The third very important shift in India's foreign policy that I identified, that India had been dealing all these countries unilaterally in 1970s, 80s, and all that. This unilateral approach has been transformed into the constructive unilateralism, and this constructive unilateralism, where we have started giving a line of credits, developmental aid, grants, not only to Bangladesh but to Nepal, to Bhutan, and of course like Sri Lanka and all these countries. The constructive unilateralism, how that has become a source of connectivity between these countries. I would come with the how it has been executed, the constructive unilateralism. The fourth very important significant point is that earlier we used to have we used to we used to go for the resource nationalism, that our land, our water, our mountain, our that. This resource nationalism had become obstacle between the cooperations at sub-regional level or regional level. This resource nationalism had been transformed, shifted towards the resource sharing formula. Like let the Bangladesh have access to Nepal, let the Bangladesh has access to Bhutan, let the Nepal also have access to Mongla and Chittagong port, and Bhutan also have access to Mongla and Chittagong port. That resource sharing formula has in fact transformed the mindset of the people, that let's have a sub-regional cooperation between the two between these countries, and let India also have access to northeastern countries. This kind of resource nation, whatever the India is developing in science and technology, like that will also we will share with the other partners, other countries. Like SARC satellite is one of the examples that has also been very much identified while the last SARC summit was held, where we talked about the power corridor and energy corridor between the South Asian countries. So my point is simple, that this resource sharing formula has really transformed the mindset of the people, that we started thinking reached on the BBIN motor vehicle agreements. Let's explore these things. And there we had also talks that we will not just take one issue and two issues. We will take a package deal of resolving all these issues. And to execute these are the principally we agreed these countries, but to execute these, we are well aware that in case of India and Bangladesh,
Professor Sanjay, we are running out of time.
Yes, I will just take 2-3 more minutes.
Thank you.
That 4 line of credit, 2010, 2015, 2017, and then 2070s, 4 line of credit has been extended to Bangladesh to develop the connectivity with Northeast to Bangladesh, between India and Bhutan and Bangladesh and Nepal and Bangladesh and all that. These line of credit, these infrastructures would be used between the two countries. Like in the first line of credit, 15 projects had been completed, or 12 projects had been completed so far. 3 are supposed to be handed over. There are progress on other areas also. Border hearts concepts was also introduced. Now we are looking the connectivity, energy connectivity or energy grids, like particularly from Numaligarh to Banglabandha, they are having oil pipeline. There are a number of projects. We also try to improve the integrated check post, land custom station, export processing zones, all that. And also there are 5 rail connectivity projects had been executed to connect between India and Bangladesh and to Northeast. And there Bangladesh and Bhutan can also utilize. On the energy issues, let the Bangladesh also invest in Bhutan's energy sector. Let Bangladesh also import the energy from Bhutan. That kind of SOP, that kind of mindset, that a constructive mindset, trying to integrate this BBIN countries for better partnership and to develop the Eastern South Asia sub-region a developmental hub and opportunities for the extra-regional powers as well as the other regional partners in these countries. I had to say a number of other things, but thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I try to bring things all together in the policy perspective. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Professor Bharadwaj. Unfortunately, we are really running out of time. 5 o'clock, we have to close. And this is already 1 minute left only to 5 o'clock. So it's pity. I would very much like to open the floor. Arindamji, what is your idea? Can I request for 10 more minutes, and 5:10 we close?
Yes,
thank you.
yes,
Thanks for being so kind. So friends and colleagues, let us make effective use of our time. And I'm seeing that Shekhar Sinhaji is with us. He has already raised his hand. So I would very much like to give him the floor. My request would be that please make very brief intervention, and we would go back to everyone. But it's always a pleasure to hear you. Shekharji, kindly take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi. It's always a pleasure to join, and good to see my friend Arindam for inviting me to this forum. All the speakers have said very relevant things, and I'm glad that people are talking about a package deal for this BBI. Because connectivity alone is not going to cut the ice, mainly because the developmental sort of pedestal of everybody is different, and India will have to do much more. And I think a time has come, rather than calling it a connectivity project, just call it a BBI and some kind of forum, you can name it. I think Sachinji is very good in naming, so he can find a name. And I think it should be full-fledged economic. In fact, I will go to the extent of saying that you can always call it a free trade agreement and identify what will be the limit for India. Otherwise, Indian items might flood your markets. You might not get chance of your local products to come into market. So you can have a choice, and I'm sure that the Indian government, will take a call on that, and I think they will permit you to do this. So that's all I wanted to add in this, because we have a security concern, as you know. I know there are other countries outside these four who have, reasonable influence on some of our neighbors. But then you have to take your own decision. You are all a sovereign country as to what is good for people of your country. And I think that is what should be driving factor. Thank you, Sachinji, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Shikhaji. It's always very substantive and very focused intervention. I think the idea of all composite approach is a brilliant one. This would be a game changer in the region, as Purushottam Ojaji mentioned, that we need to have the larger canvas before us. Thank you. I do not see any other hand. Let me now.
I see.
I think Glenn has got his hand up.
Mr. Glenn.
Who?
Glenn.
Mr.
Glenn. Okay. Okay. Glenn, can you please take the floor?
Yes. Thank you, Professor Sachin. I would just like to jump in right away and say this, that the discussions and your presentations have been very, very attractive. It seems to me that one of the things that's bedeviling the entire process is effective time management. As I heard the representative from Bangladesh spell out, that as long as no definite timelines with milestones are established in the development project, that's going to be a hindrance, because it's going to lead to cost overruns, and negotiating with Asian Development Bank or World Bank is going to be very tedious. So my encouragement is to keep with a time frame and keep it religiously strict towards the development project. Okay, and that's all I'd like to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Arindamji, is there anyone else who is taking the floor?
No, Professor.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, colleagues, friends. I'm afraid I would very much like to give only half a minute to our panelists, just for some keywords that they want to say, just half a minute each, because I have borrowed very few minutes from Arindamji. So I would like to give only half minute to all my panelists for last round. And let me now go in the reverse order and invite Sanjay ji first. I'm very sorry I had to disrupt you in between, but please, half a minute. You are on mute.
Sorry, pleasure of mine. Thank you very much. I'll just speak half a minute. One of the participant has raised the question of trade imbalance. I can bet it. I think if we have energy cooperation with Bhutan and Nepal, has huge hydroelectricity surplus, they can that can balance the trade between the two countries, and the transit through Bangladesh can balance the Bangladesh-India trade. That is only I can add. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Pandey, Pushraji.
Okay. Thank you, Sachin. My half minute intervention is we need to have some sort of institutional mechanism to take forward this regional cooperation among BBIN countries. Well, right now we have that and motor vehicle agreement, and not any institutional mechanisms, like we need maybe some sort of secretariat or other kind of institutional mechanism. I think that is the time to talk about that mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ojaji.
Thank you, Sachin. Of course, Shekhar Sinhaji was talking about free trade area, possibility of free trade area in the sub-region. I was hinting that in the sense that Nepal, India has a kind of preferential trade agreement with Nepal, with Bangladesh, as well as with Bhutan. So my concern is that the trade between Nepal and Bangladesh and Nepal and Bhutan is very less. Particularly with Bangladesh, it has a huge population, almost 170 million people, but still we don't have the much trade with Bangladesh. So what I see that if we could already we are getting concession tariff concessions in market access to India, all of us, I mean all other three countries, but we have not been able to build up trade with particularly Bangladesh. I think my early harvest program on free trade area is to get something that we can test with Bangladesh as well as Bhutan in order to enhance bilateral trade in the sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Purushottamji. Let me now invite Dr. Mahfouz Kabir for his final words. Dr. Kabir, I don't see him here. In his absence, let me now take the floor to just give some broad points that I have noted here to share with Arindamji and with everyone here. And then I would give the floor back to Arindamji for his final remarks. So I have friends and colleagues noted 12 points, which I feel are quick areas to begin with. But I fully agree with Shekhar Sinhaji when he says that we need all composite approach. And this is what, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at in terms of our partnership and also in terms of providing a comprehensive approach, as Professor Bharadwaj was saying, in a manner which is robust, rigorous, and comprehensive. So that's important. That's the first point that I want to make, but I would very much like to borrow what Dr. Pandey said in terms of, if possible, give it some institutional shape. As of now, as some of us are aware, there are already 3 working groups effective. One of them is on energy. The second is very much on the Motor Vehicle Act, and third is about the connectivity. So those 3 are already in place, out of which one has completed the work. So that is now very much happening. Let me quickly run, and I think Dr. Kabir made some very brilliant points, and 3 of his points I found very interesting, which were later on also repeated by my other panelists. The idea of MVA, carbon footprint and Agenda 2030, I think they all go in one go. They all have to be put in the same bracket. Second point is about small things like cargo handling. They may appear small, but they are extremely important, as Ojaji very rightly emphasized, and I would come back on that, in terms of enhancing efficiency and effectiveness of our trade cooperation, of the regional corridors, coastal shipping, multimodal connectivity, but much more important than that, he emphasized on timelines. So these are the 3 points which I find Dr. Kabir making extremely brilliantly. Then Purushottam Ojaji made again another set of comments which were very, very important. And I'm sure Arindamji, somebody's taking down the notes. His first point is about the multiple levels of connectivity that we need in BBIN. His idea of, and he gave example of 5 southern cities which would be connected with railways, or expansion of roads or inland waterways, transport infrastructure, transit seaports, modernization of ports, simplification of procedures, transit seaport connectivity, intra and inter-industry linkages. These all form part of his ambitious agenda for BBIN cooperation. They may be deciphered, and I'm sure pages after pages can be written, but a brilliant mind like Purushottam Ojaji could capture all of them in one go for all of us. And that's the brilliance, brevity is the essence when we talk of regional cooperation, and it happens only, I think, with a lot of experience like what Mr. Oja has. So I think this is good. His second point, which I found extremely interesting, is about grid connectivity, which later, in context of trade, Dr. Pandey mentioned and also Dr. Bharadwaj mentioned. So that I think is important. The third point he made, which was also very good, was in terms of tourism. And then he gave a lot of examples of tourism. I'm not getting into details, though I have some points of that. Then his idea, which I found very interesting, and it goes again close to what was mentioned towards the end by Professor Bharadwaj, is in terms of BBIN early harvest program. So it's not FTA per se, but an early harvest scheme with limited elements of trade understanding, respecting the local content, respecting rules of origin, and providing scope for local livelihood security, not to get local people derailed, but at the same time not allowing external actors to use the route of bilateral trade concession to dump in their goods from our neighboring countries. So India has concerns, and the partner countries also have concerns. We have to be sensitive to each other's concerns, and we have to cooperate in such a manner that trust and partnership gets strengthened when we are cooperating. So BBIN early harvest program, transit protocol, and modernization of the system. Brilliant points, Purushottamji. I think Dr. Poshraj Pandey made a very important point in terms of his emphasis on digital connectivity, skilled human resources, trade-related real data time sharing, affordability of some of these initiatives, cost-effective connect in terms of how we bring in cross-border e-commerce, digital payment architecture. Brilliant proposition in terms of how modern trade transaction should happen. India, friends and colleagues, has already developed some of these mechanisms. Being on the board of the Reserve Bank, I'm seeing consistent efforts by India to develop alternative to SWIFT. In India, we have already developed alternative to SWIFT. Till 2016, our banks were dependent, even within India, on SWIFT. Prime Minister Modi gave very clear instructions to Reserve Bank and all our banking that by 2017, all banks should walk out of SWIFT, only for external transactions. Now we have our own internal banking transaction platforms, which are connected with all branches in the country. Now, from 2018 onwards, some banks wanted some time, 6 months were given, but 2019 onwards, not a single bank for domestic transactions is dependent on SWIFT. We are no more dependent. We have created sophistication and finesse in financial transactions. And imagine, Poshraj, the cost has come down to 1/4. 1/4. That's the advantage Prime Minister has given to all our business enterprises. RIS is going to launch a study on how small, micro, and medium enterprises have got advantage of this process of digitalization. People criticize Prime Minister for demonetization, but in the hindsight, it has helped enhance efficiency and effectiveness of our digital payment architecture, which became a boon during the COVID crisis. And I have seen how easy it is now for people to do. Even vendors are benefited by this. So I think it's a time when financial integration of BBIN should be a priority. And our bank transactions, our trade transactions, they should happen without any impediment. And India has technology. Neighbors should prefer to use that. And if you recall, Professor Poshraj Pandey, we were discussing this way back in UNSCAP on how to reduce export and import documentation. Purushottam Ojaji would be well aware of how to reduce number of documents to be enclosed with the export and import documents. ADB launched the project, but now we have done it domestically. All states in India now are on the same platform, thanks to the GST initiative, which was a bold decision. but people have liked, and we are going ahead. So that I think is important. Then I come to Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj, and in my view, he made three very important points. He made several of them, and I'm sorry that I had to stop him in between. He was prepared to do more, but we had really very limited time. So his three important points. The first one is about common ecological balance that we need. This commonality is our strength, but the mountains, the snow in Nepal depends on what we do in Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean's pollution affects water and snow in Nepal. So protection of Himalayas, protection of oceans, and protection of our ecological balance is very important. He also made another important point in passing, but I think is important, is in terms of water. BBIN should focus on water, and we need to work that out. And that, I think, is an important proposition. His two other points, which I found interesting, I have already alluded to in terms of trade. So friends and colleagues, it was a great brains of South Asia working together, focusing on BBIN, but as I said, it should not be seen as sub-regional cooperation. It's a great composite for a larger canvas that all of us are eyeing at. With these words, I once again thank Arindam ji for giving me this pleasure and honor of connecting with all of you. Back to you, Arindam ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin ji. Good evening, all. I, on behalf of Institute of Social and Cultural Studies, India, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers of today's webinar for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. A big thanks to Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, DGRIS. And in beginning, my colleague Mohit forgot to mention about his two important portfolios. I want to mention those. He is at present member of Central Board of Director, Reserve Bank of India, and also he is Vice Chairman of Madhya Pradesh Rajyo Niti Evam Yojana Ayog. Sachin ji, thank you for your efforts towards as a moderator of today's webinar. Also would like to extend a special thanks to Dr. Mahfouz Kabir, Research Director, BIISS Dhaka, Sri Purushottam Ocha ji, former Commerce Secretary of Government of Nepal, for making excellent presentations and making this webinar interesting and meaningful. I also wish to express my gratitude to our other speakers of today's webinar, Dr. Poshraj Pandey. Thank you, sir. Chairman, he is Chairman of South Asia Watch on Trade, Economies and Environment. And my friend, Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj, he is a Professor of Center for South Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, India. And at last, thanks to all the participants for attending today's webinar and also for their valuable suggestions. And last but not least, thanks to all the people who helped us either directly or indirectly to make the webinar successful. Thank you very much.